In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming short, medium, and long range. And in this video, especially a focus on the long range, as we're going to be taking a look at something that I haven't really talked about much on the channel ever, which is a sudden stratospheric warming event. And that is something, it sounds like kind of a tongue twister, but it causes disruptions in the polar vortex, that big buzzword that we've heard throughout the years. And likely we're undergoing a major event right now that is going to disrupt that typical polar vortex that sits kind of over the center of the Arctic Circle. It's going to elongate and potentially bring very cold temperatures down into the United States around the early to mid-January timeframe is kind of when we're looking for that. There is a few weeks of lag time with this type of thing, and we're going to be diving into that. We do have snowfall around. We do have colder air outside of that as well to discuss, so we're going to be doing an overall big video today. Here's the past 20 days and now the full 1st through 20th of December, and we see overall already we've had cooler temperatures throughout a lot of the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, as well as the Midwest, Northern Plains here. It's really stemmed from this South Central Canada area and gone ahead and dived on in. We do see that overall we've had a positive PNA feature out here in the West, this warmer look out West overall. That has been the look for the first 2/3 of December. We are going to have a mostly warmer final 10 days to December, but most of these areas in the blue should end up being colder than normal, as we're under a colder pattern right now until about Christmas time frame. So there's going to be some cooling before it warms back up. I think this should be around what we see in the final look for December overall. Now here is that typical polar vortex. I want to just kind of show you guys really cold temperatures. I'm going to do white actually for the drawing to make things easier, but overall colder temperatures right there, really just rotating westerly around this area. Really cold temperatures, and that jet stream is staying pretty stagnant and typical. Now when we actually look at what we're seeing in the upcoming upper atmosphere, this is way up in the stratosphere. Keep in mind, cold air sinks. This is going to have lag time, but we like to look at the top first and work our way down the layers of the atmosphere. And again, this is very high up. And what we see is already we're undergoing some disruption. The Arctic Circle is right about here, the actual Arctic center, if you will. And what we see is a lot of the colder anomalies are on the east side and the south side here, mostly over the western areas of Canada here, with a lot of positive anomalies on the other side of the globe, like Russia, Asia, some of Europe as well. That is where we see mostly these warm anomalies. So we've seen this disruption where there's a cold side and a warm side, and we're going to see that kind of just continue. This is Friday the 20th today. As we keep going, we see things want to get back to being centered a little bit here. This frame almost looks like we're kind of rebounding. That's Boxing Day, the 26th. But what we see is that from the west, we kind of get this elongated look again of warmth pushing in right here. Russia, Western North America, and then we see for a lot of Central and Eastern Russia, we see these negative anomalies, and also the eastern areas of North America. This is going to encourage colder air down the line. Again, you give about a week or two lag time, so this would, on December 31st, impact likely around January 7th time frame. As we keep going, we see that this only kind of gets more dramatic, this kind of elongated look. I'm going to put it into motion in a little bit because it's really fascinating to look at, but we see really negative anomalies over the eastern United States, eastern Canada, and then also for a lot of western Russia, I would say, as well as into northern Europe. We see a lot of those negative anomalies, whereas we see the very positive anomalies over the western regions of the United States and the eastern regions of Russia and western Canada as well. As we keep going, we see that wants to just kind of continue that elongated look here straight through January 5th. So this sudden stratospheric warming event looks to impact a lot of the central time period of much of the eastern areas of the United States, and it's intensifying down the line. And we're going to see, January, the majority of the month of January be affected by this dramatically. The biggest impact that these events have, we call them SSWs for short, is odd jet stream patterns. This is when you can get huge fluctuations in the ridges and troughs throughout not only the United States and North America, but also just around the northern hemisphere overall. Now, I want to kind of put this into motion. We can hit the play button here and just watch it watch it play out. I mean, it starts to really swirl and do odd things. It's kind of staying a tight circle until a certain point, like right around now. And then it starts to get this elongated look and swirl around. And that's obviously not the typical round polar vortex that you see right around the Arctic. And matter of fact, at the end here, it's so extreme and just awesome looking. This is the Arctic right here, the actual center of the Arctic right there, the North Pole. And what we see is warmer anomalies over that center, and a lot of these colder conditions have been pushed further to the right side here, as you can see, away from that center. So this is where we start to see major cold air for some places. If you're familiar with the AO, the Arctic Oscillation, this would put us in a hugely negative AO, which just encourages cold air in the United States for 1/2. And I think that these positive anomalies over the western areas of Canada, the United States, Alaska, is going to really encourage a positive PNA at the same time. So if we get a positive PNA set up here, this Arctic air really just shooting into the eastern states. Again, this is not the surface by any means, but this does kind of sink down to the surface. I think that this is going to lead towards really cold conditions at the surface for some folks. Now, for your regular portion of the video, we've done a little bit of a flip. We're going to be starting with the European model. We're also going to be using the European model from now on for at least a while. The precipitation anomalies, everything's going to be centered around the Euro, with the GFS kind of being our secondary model. The GFS had a really good run throughout the hurricane season and a lot of the fall, but the European model has really just taken back the throne as kind of the best model for now. These do fluctuate, and we do see successes and failures on both when they do disagree, but the European model has been on a hot streak, so we're kind of elevating it to our #1 model for now. Just thought I'd mention that. Now, I did look at the radar before making this video. We are getting some pretty decent snowfall in here, especially Pennsylvania, New York, New England. I think that a lot of areas in here are overperforming with our coastal system that is just offshore. So congratulations to you guys that have been hoping for snowfall that are seeing some. We continue to see a positive PNA with trough in the east, but again, this will be ending relatively soon. We're going to see the after Christmas timeframe look quite the opposite of this, but this is a sneak peek. We could see something like this or even more extreme than this after this SSW event takes place. Now, as we keep going through the pattern, I want to take us to tomorrow on Saturday, December 21st. A lot of big college football playoff games going on. Historic for college football. You guys know I talk about it every once in a while, but to see the 12-team playoff system in action, I'm so excited to watch that play out. So we have a game in Columbus, Ohio, where there could be really cold conditions and snowfall, perhaps. Penn State as well, really cold also there. I don't know if we have any other games like really up in there. I think Texas has a home game. So really for the cold areas, that Penn State game and Ohio State game are going to be really interesting to watch. Also, Notre Dame, Indiana for today. That's for today on Friday. Really chilly there as well, although they're both kind of from up there. I think the big thing about the Ohio State game is Tennessee has to travel up. That's going to be really, really fun to see whoever wins. I like Ohio State. My sister likes Tennessee, so it's an interesting situation. As we take a look at Sunday, a lot of the same. Not too much in terms of precipitation. Still just really chilly in this area. Probably have some big NFL games, but I don't want to bore you guys with sports. You didn't come here for that. We do see showers, even snowfall showers for the west. This probably will be worsening over the coming days after that. We do see the 3rd. It looks like it's slowed down a little bit for the moment, but we have more on the way. Rockies seeing some snowfall showers. Also a clipper system moving through the Midwest and Great Lakes here, bringing perhaps 1 inch, 2, 3, 4 maybe there for Wisconsin and Michigan. This will also bring some snowfall to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast in a moment. As we see that kind of dips down for the morning of Christmas Eve. This is 7 a.m. Christmas Eve. And what we see is snowfall showers, even some moderate to heavy for New York, Vermont, New Hampshire there. So a little bit of a snowy scene leading into Christmas here for some folks. As we take a look at the west, We do see some more major storminess taking place, also some colder air being pulled onshore, and this is the beginning of the flip of a pattern here. We're seeing us flip into the negative PNA. Positive PNA gonna really start to bring warmer temperatures to the east here, so really, really interesting. I got a comment yesterday, I can't remember exactly what it is, but somebody's saying that, like, basically trying to allude to the fact that the PNA is not important, and I focus on that too much. Really, as of the last year at least, and really as long as I've been paying attention, the PNA is one of the most crucial driving factors as far as the temperatures across the west and the east. And obviously the PNA is the measurement of a result out west. It's not really showing you what's going to happen in the west. It's telling you what's happening, but it tells you almost precisely what's going to happen in the east. I think the comment was alluding to the fact that it's only important for the west and not for the east, but it is crucial for, I would argue, all of North America, and more impactful than the AO or NAO in my opinion. So really, as far as short-term, teleconnections go, I would say the PNA is the most critical. And we're going to see this happen quickly. I'm going to prove the importance here. We see a negative PNA starting. It's just the beginning signs here. Storminess and some cold along the northwest coast here. Watch how just the day or two following this, we just had very frigid temperatures in the east. Watch how quickly it warms up. Watch this. We'll backtrack. Here's the 21st with lots of cold, warmth in the west. We move to some cold moving over the northwest, and watch how fast this cold wants to move out of the eastern states as we move into Christmas. Watch this flow. Here is Christmas Day. Some showers across the southeast, some snowfall in the Rockies. Here's Thursday the 26th, warming still in the east. That PNA expanding out west, negative PNA. And then for Saturday the 28th, I mean, look at this. Warmth in the east, so much warmer than it was. It's hard to even ignore these types of patterns when they're this in your face obvious. We see snowfall flourishing in the northwest, and we see mild temperatures really, really not even struggling to move into the eastern states. I mean, this is just classic stuff. Showers, thunderstorms here. It's quite humid and quite warm. Could be thunderstorms throughout a lot of these areas. Again, complete flip from the wintry pattern that we're going to be seeing here for a couple of days. Let's move towards the 28th. Here's Saturday, and again, warm, mild, stormy in the west, or in the east. We see snowfall for the northwest still. Not too much to discuss yet. Here's Sunday the 30th, or Sunday the 29th, and we see a little bit of a weaker low there near the mid-Atlantic. Some snowfall perhaps for very mountainous areas in Pennsylvania and New York, but not the most cold air to work with. The bigger storm on screen here is this 995 moving onshore to the northwest, Washington, Oregon in particular, but a lot of the Rockies and Sierra Nevada and even Cascades seeing some snowfall there. Interestingly enough, we have kind of a neutral PNA here and a little bit of a trough here trying to move into the east. The jet stream gets a little wonky here along the east coast, but it's just not going to be able to hold on, I don't think, because we don't have the negative or the positive PNA fully in place. I think this is going to be a little shorter lived there. We see it move in. We get some snowfall there for the 30th, but it really isn't able to deep dive. It's the second one that comes in that really is able to take over, and I think it's because we see this developing positive PNA along the west coast. Instantly, we're flipped into a colder pattern in the east here. So again, super critical, super important, and if the general public is educated on this type of thing, they can look at a weather map, a temperature map, and be like, hey, it's warm in the west, it's going to get cold in the east. This is how people learn. Not by me just telling you what's going to happen, but I'm trying to also teach you guys at the same time. I'm trying to teach you guys how to fish, not give you a fish, if that makes sense. The low pressure system here in Tennessee. This is kind of a new feature. Don't know if this is going to stick around or if it's going to be a one run wonder kind of deal, but we do see it move through. Doesn't bring too much in the way of wintry weather, but there is a lot of cold air very close by, and I think this type of a feature for the first couple of days of January could have potential to be maybe a bit of a southern slider. These areas, would be the primary folks to watch for potential snowfall in this type of a scenario. Let's say it gets a little colder, that would be something to watch for, or it moves northward as well, the low moving north into the cold. Those are a couple of things that could lead to this being a little more snowy, but we see some for Virginia and West Virginia, and then that one moves offshore. Again, this also could be closer to the coast. If it's more in here, watch out East Coast, because it's not a huge change, especially when this is 300 hours out. We expect bigger changes than that between now and then. This could be something to watch. Again, if it even happens, is the important, crucial feature here. But this positive PNA is fully back in place for the end of December, early January timeframe. And we see cold flourishing over the central and eastern states once again. Pretty short-lived warm-up if this is the case. We continue to see this, look, even worsening by the time we're looking at Thursday, January 2nd. Not a lot of precipitation to go around. Friday the 3rd, some lake effect snowfall and snow showers. This is a major cold situation. And again, this is right around, maybe even on the early end of when the SSW would be bringing colder temperatures to the east. Positive PNA is really flourishing, and that is almost directly responsible for the cold being directed at the east. So, very important. As we take a look at the GFS model, now our secondary model, we're going to get some disagreement, nothing in the short range. We're getting almost perfect agreement here. A little snowier across the west. As you can see, we get a storm for the 25th, 26th, 7th, another one moves in. 7th, 8th, another system moves in. So that's 3 storms back to back to back. Here comes one on the 30th. Here comes that little bit of cold air, but look, it gets milder in the east again for the first few days of January. And then suddenly we're pushed with more cold air from coast to coast. This model has been wanting to push this for a few days now, this coast to coast cold air. I really doubt this would happen. It's either going to be over the west or the east. Again, because the PNA would be negative in this case, this would likely be a warmer time in the east. But which one is true? Will the cold be over the east or will the cold be over the west? That's what remains to be known. And I really feel like that's a part of the reason why I'm leaning more towards the European at this point. As we take a look at the European model's total precipitation, we see that the northwest is flourishing. Also, a lot of the deeper south up the east coast here. We get a southern slider in there of sorts. We get a couple other systems, and that's going to bring some pretty decent precipitation. Still, with all that being said, we end up with some drier conditions for some of the deep south. But overall, I would say this is pretty neutral for most of these areas. At least a lot better than things we've seen in recent months. Northwest also getting quite above average precipitation. Total snowfall in the European model here looks exactly like this. A lot for the west, a bit for the plains and Midwest here, and then the east potentially on the upswing once we get cold again. GFS model, way less in the northern plains and upper Midwest, less in the east, and about the same amount here over the west. That seems to be the one thing that these models know for a fact is going to occur. Tons of snow in the west. Temperature pattern. Again, we're going to have some discrepancies here between the European and GFS model. We're colder for now, like I mentioned, pretty severe as well, and the East Coast hangs on to it through Christmas. We do warm up here, almost coast to coast, almost purely over the east here around the 31st, January 1st. But very quickly we start to cool down in the east here. Clearly, positive PNA overall is taking over here. Colder air directing at these regions. Very, very interesting. As we keep going, it only worsens towards the 4th, and I suspect the days following, like the 7th again through the 10th, could be even colder. Now, as we take a look at the GFS model, I'm going to skip and spare you from the short range stuff, but when we take a look at the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, it's still warm over the east. That cold finally moves in around the 5th, 6th, 7th, but still the west is a negative PNA, and this would be huge and really lead to a different outcome in my opinion. So big discrepancies. When we look at the European weekly model, this is a model that's going to have a better handle on the long range. Let's take a look at what happens. This is the 1st through the 7th. Well, first off, here's the 25th through the 1st, very warm. The 1st through the 8th, not as bad. A little cooler in the east, but mostly a negative PNA out west, as you can see. As we move towards the 7th through the 14th of January, again, when that SSW would be impacting the United States, suddenly this model has strong confidence in below normal temperatures here in the eastern corridor of the nation. For days 18 through 25, that is impressive. This is an ensemble model. This model has multiple members, which means that over the grand scheme of multiple models come together with their mean average, they're still calling for deep cold over the east. There might be some disagreeing ones, but the ones that are calling for cold are calling for a very severe cold, and likely the vast majority of them are calling for cold at this time frame, which in the long range is a little hard to come by, which means high confidence across these models. As we take a look at the 14th through the 21st, still rather cold in the east. And finally, they kind of back off on the confidence for the very late portion of January, but likely this is just, too far out and lower confidence. There will probably be some differences as we move forward. CFS model. Let's take a look. Again, here is December 25th through January 1st, rather warm. And then right away, 1st of January through the 8th, a little cooler. But the 7th through 14th, we get much cooler on the eastern portion of the nation, even from the 14th through the 21st, 21st through the 28th. This model keeps the cold over the east until the very end of January into early February. So I think that we have a lot pointing towards cold in January. Is it guaranteed? Absolutely not. I don't want anybody to think that this is completely locked in, but the puzzle pieces are coming together as I presented, and I think there is reason to be at least hopeful and pretty excited for what could come here in January. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe as we do upload every single day, and we will keep you guys up to date with all of these things that we've discussed today. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.